So you spent 36 years at CWU as a coach, staying even through seven different head coaches. What made you stay in Ellensburg even after spending 2 years on the football team and then graduating from CWU?
So when I first started, I wasn't a full time gig or anything like that. So I really didn't have anywhere to go to. I just, was finishing up. I'd started coaching and then really enjoyed it. My brother was coaching and at high school. And so he and I kind of talked about it a little bit. And then Coach Dunbar was the coach at the time. And I don't know, just had a really good experience there. And then by the time I guess I was, um, I would guess you would say putting together a resume that you could move on with. I had was married, had kids,
Mhm.
and I guess in a nutshell, I just didn't want to move them around the country. I know a lot of coaches that did do that, and in my thinking at the time was, well, if I can stay here, that'd be great. So I guess it worked out.
I was gonna say, Ellensburg and Picha kind of like just go hand in hand. So like, I mean, it just makes sense.
Which is funny because in the late '70s, um, I remember my sister came here for a year, and it was a different place. And it was like I said, it was the late '70s, the end of the Vietnam War, and all that stuff. And there were a lot of guys coming back from the war to come go to school. They had the GI Bill and all that stuff. But anyways, beyond all that, we came over to get my sister after when the year was over, and I was a young kid. She's 10 years older than me,
Mhm.
so she was 19, I was 9, and I remember coming over here, and the wind was blowing, and it was dusty because everything was. They still had the railroad tracks going through.
Yeah.
You could see where the railroad tracks had gone through the university at one point.
Mhm.
Um, and I just remember it being windy and blowy, and went, man, I'll never ever come here again. Well, look at me now.
Just still living it up in Ellensburg.
Yeah, living it up.
It's funny the way life brings you.
Yeah,
All right. So you served as the CW head track and field coach for a few years. Can you speak on
yeah,
that experience and earning the conference men's coach of the year I won during your tenure?
yep. Um, well, so that was I was the last person. How do I say this? So before, when I was going to school here, the coaches were also professors, so they were teaching PE classes. They were teaching anatomy and kinesiology and a lot of these classes. Well, um, I was hired as the head track and assistant football
Mhm.
um, coach, and I think I was the last guy hired for 2 jobs. And so we did that, and it was pretty much the reason I think I was hired was because I had college experience in both um, track and football. I had coached under Charles Chandler in track, and I was the throws coach, and then I was already doing the football thing.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a pretty easy matchup for me as far as like I should be okay. It's just whether or not they want me or not. And then so anyways, I got to do the track and field, and that was a learning experience. Just learning before I just had my head in the throws, and those that was kind of like your in track and field. Sometimes you get into these little worlds where like that's who I hung out with. I hung out with the throwers. We were over in the pits all the time throwing. Kind of your jumpers are the same way, and then your sprinters are the same way, and your distance runners are little in these little groups and stuff. And so I didn't know much about um, the track actually part of the track and field. I knew the field really well. The track I wasn't as great at. But I had a guy by the name of Charlie Smith,
Mhm.
who was my well great. I think he was a great coach, and he and I kind of helped put things together. And Megan Perkett, and she was on the women's side. And back then, I was the men's and women's. There wasn't a men's and women's coach, which I don't know if there is now. There's not just one,
Um,
right?
they they have the main head coach, and then there's a couple assistants that kind of oversee specific areas.
Yeah. And then we didn't have any full time assistants or anything. They're all GA type, getting paid a little bit of money type thing. And but it was a great experience. And then we had what I did back then, because we were NEIA and we didn't have spring ball, so I could get out football players to come participate in track and field. So I'd get some guys out there. Jay Spears was a real notable one. He was a guy who played football and track and was a stud in track. And a couple guys like, a couple sprinters here and there, maybe a thrower here and there. And we just kind of ended up putting together a pretty darn good team and ended up winning the GNAC championship. And then pretty much if you win that, you get coach of the year. So there you have it.
I like it. Using your resources.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody does. So I think those are the smart people. If you're smart enough to use the people around, help use the guidance that people around you give, you're going to do well. If you think you can do it all on your own, you're going to have some problems.
Absolutely. And that's just kind of in life in general.
100%.
All right. So you were on the staff in 95 when CW won the NAIA National Championship. Can you describe what that experience was like and being a part of a staff and getting to have your name associated with a national championship?
Well, that was a fun time of the year, or a fun time of my life, also because we were all pretty young. We were a young staff, kind of like the ones they have now. And we just had a ton of fun. We weren't tremendously great going in. I mean, I can't remember our records going into 95. I don't think they were stellar. Like a 6-4 team type thing, or 6-3. I think we only played 9-10 games those years. And we were good. I wouldn't say we were great in 95. And we ended up, I can't remember, you might have to do some digging on the actual numbers and stuff, but we ended up just getting into the playoffs. We weren't that great. The last week we beat, I can't even remember who we beat. And the top two teams, or the three teams in front of us to go to the playoffs, all lost. So I think we went from ranked 18th, and they only took the top 16 teams. And we were 18th, and we got bumped to 16. So we got bumped up, and Western Washington was number 1 in the country at that time in football. And so I think what happened was and this is just me speculating, but I think what happened was the NEIA looked at it and went, hey, we can put number 16 with number 1, which is how you should probably do your playoff systems. And they're in the same state. So let's bump Central to 16. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But anyway, so we took a short bus ride instead of flying us somewhere. They took a short bus ride up. We played up at Western, and we beat them. And that was a pretty big win. And the other thing that we did was Western was pretty confident they were going to win the national, or at least play for the national championship. So back then you would take, and again, I don't know how it all works now, but you weren't, just because you were ranked higher didn't necessarily mean you were going to play a home game. Back then it was all based off of how much you would bid. So Central would say, okay, we're going to bid $10,000 to have the game here at Central, even if we were ranked number 1. And then What's the Matter You could say, hey, we're going to bid $12,000 to have it in Ohio. And then the way the NAIA would do it, say, okay, well, you get it because you're going to give us a guaranteed $12,000. That's kind of how they did it. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. So anyways, Western thought they were going to win the national championship, or at least play for it. So they reserved the Tacoma Dome to play the national championship in. Well, we took their reservation. So they were going to scuttle their reservation at the Tacoma Dome. We said, no, we'll take it. And so that was always so we kind of fumbled and bumbled our way through the playoffs and got to the national championship and played it in the Tacoma Dome. And the Western football coach, they send a football coach or a representative from, to go see the football games to kind of help facilitate both teams and all that stuff. Well, the Western coach was our representative, and all he could say was, "Man, we should be here." And then we would just say, "Well, you should have won the game then."
Yeah.
So, anyways, went in there, played the game, um, and it didn't end great, but because it was a tie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe it. We played the game. We missed some opportunities to win it, and then and I'm sure they would say the same thing. And then when we got to the end of the game, we're all ready for play, overtime. Mm-hmm. And the refs kind of came up and said, "There is no overtime." We're like, "What?" And so they ran off the field, and so Findlay of Ohio was on one side of the 50, and they got the trophy, and we were on the other side of the 50 with the banner. And the kids are yelling at each other. I mean, we still won. They won all fight. I mean, they wanted to keep going at it. And so, anyways, and that was the game. And then, it takes a couple minutes to kind of wear off. And hey, we're still champions. So the guys played hard, and we're actually in the record book, and we're also, I believe, we're in. Don't quote me on this, I guess, but I think we're on Trivial Pursuits as the last NCAA football team or game ending in a tie.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you learned something.
Not sure I want that dubious honor, but it's what it is. But the kids played hard that year. I mean, great team. It's a Hall of Fame team. Mm-hmm. They've been inducted and stuff, and it gave a bump and a surge in people coming to Central in the applications and all that stuff. And I think anytime a team does that well and draws, we were getting played on in Seattle and Tacoma and Spokane and all that stuff. It just helps bring people to the school, oh yeah, Central, let's go check that out. And so anyway, other than that, but it was a great team to be a part of. It was, the process of going through it was awesome. And, but it was, I'll always be, we'll always be national champions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can't argue otherwise.
Right.
All right. Well, that was a cool story. You learned a lot of new things with that. But
yeah, I don't know if I should say everything, but that's what it was. So
that's okay. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you were named the interim head coach in 2013. What was that experience like, having head coaching duties, especially after being one of the lead assistants for your career leading up to that point?
It was unexpected. I didn't anticipate it. But Dr. Francois called me in and says, "Hey, do you want to do this for a season?" And I said, "Sure. I'll do anything for the experiences and all that stuff. I think that's important." The only thing is when they fired the head coach, he also fired he was also the offense coordinator and the quarterback coach. And so the offense was fairly easy to take care of. We changed a lot of it. But the hard thing, I think, was are you there, bud?
Oh, yeah. I hear me. There we go.
Oh. I don't know. Did you hear everything I said?
I did not. I heard.
Okay, you froze up there. It might have been me. What part did you remember hearing?
It was the when you took over the offense.
Okay, so we changed a lot on the offense because what we were running was kind of, not a great offense. There was a lot of things we improved on, and then so the hardest thing was trying to find a guy to come in here and be the quarterback coach, and found Eric Meyer. He was an All-American at Eastern, Hall of Famer in the Big Sky, great guy. He was playing on the he was like a star of the big time arena football, whatever level that is.
Arena football.
And yeah, so he was doing really well. He was getting, and I mean, he was probably on the edge to be in the NFL, but now but anyway, so I actually called Bo Baldwin. He and I talked, and Bo was at Eastern at the time. And I said, "Do you have any guys that you think could coach?" at this late date. And so he told me about Eric Meyer. I talked to Eric Meyer. He had a playoff game. I've never rooted so hard for a team to lose in all my life. They lost the playoff game. So that means he would have been here, an extra week earlier, which was awesome. He went back, checked out of his team, which means you have a physical and all that stuff, and then you leave and you can do whatever you want. And he came, and I mean, the day he came here, we were up until about 3:00 in the morning, getting stuff ironed out and stuff like that. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then had a ton of fun. Put a lot of hours in, but had a ton of fun doing it. I think the players, it's, I think, amazing the resilience of players, because to those guys, it was nothing more than a little itty bitty speed bump. It might have been, oh, sheesh, at the very second, like, oh, what just happened? And then once we started putting on the pads and going out and practicing and the game started rolling around, I don't think, I don't think the players felt reserved or hindered. Maybe they did, I don't know, but I don't think, a lot of them came up, especially towards the end of the season, where I think things were starting to pop even a little bit better. Last game we went down and played Dixie and, beat them 44-0 and turned a lot of things around that we kind of stuttered a little bit in the first. And I think a lot of kids enjoyed the way that we kind of ran things. And so anyways, but I think the players had a good time. We definitely had a good time as coaches. Defense was outstanding that year, so that was always a help. But I didn't know, that wasn't for me. That's not what I wanted to do. There was a lot of things I think in the head job that I didn't want to. I'd rather just work on football and not the discipline part of it all the time, or the, what all the little decisions that head coaches make, and the big ones too. But that, to me, that wasn't as enjoyable as it was to be able to go and play football and
that makes sense.
Or coach football and have fun.
Yeah. And it probably helped that all the guys knew you already too, and so they could buy in probably a little easier from that to
probably
what you were trying to put together.
Well, that always helps, I think.
Yeah.
That the having a little, some people that are I mean, the whole staff stayed there except for, and so, I mean, I don't think we were. Yeah, I think it was kind of what I said. I think it was a shock at first, and then once it took about a day, and then the guys were like, "All right, I mean, we're practicing the way we always did. Yep, let's go."
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Well, it was definitely one of the more successful seasons, so that definitely had to feel good on your part.
Well, we went 7-4. We should have been 9-2. Dropped a couple games that we shouldn't have dropped, and yeah, I don't want to look back on that stuff, but it was a ton of fun.
That's what's important.
That's right.
All right. So, what's your favorite thing about Ellensburg and Central Washington University?
You want the favorite thing about Ellensburg or the university, or just how they work together?
Either one. Either one, if you have a preference between the two, or just in general, the Ellensburg area and incorporating CWU in that.
Well, my wife, Brenda, she teaches second grade, and she taught most of the years at Lincoln Elementary, and now she's over at Ida Elementary. And I think one of the things that we found together living here is that the community is pretty involved in I don't know how to say this. Okay, let me revamp this. I think now you got to make me sound intelligent here.
Oh, right? I got you. Don't worry. I'll do a little reworking.
Perfect. I think as for, and I'm sure there's many people like this that are professors at Central and work at Central and stuff, that the town of Ellensburg is it's a great place to raise kids. We raised, my two kids here, Katie and Dave, and I felt that they played sports. They had a great time in school. They, fishing, doing all that stuff, hunting a little bit. The hard thing was some of those things I loved to do, I couldn't do because of football, because those times are kind of taken, like especially hunting and bird hunting and all that stuff. But the town itself, I think, has always been really welcoming. They've always been great people here. I've never really never really had any horrible experiences. And I like the fact that we're an hour and a half away from Seattle. So if we want to go see a Mariners game, we can zip over there and do that without much of a problem, and then still get out of the traffic and come back home and, wake up to sunny skies, and being able to do a lot of the outdoor stuff I enjoy. But I would say that just the people in Ellensburg, I really enjoyed. I think it's a great location. Yeah. And then the university, I think, has done a pretty good job, or has done a good job of trying to reach out between the two. There's always kind of that, you look at University Way as kind of the divider between the university and the town. But I think Central and the community of Ellensburg have always tried to work well together. I know there's been, throughout the years I've been here, you're going to have a glitch here and there that, hey, we ought to name it this or do this or whatever. But I think Central's done a really good job also of knowing that, hey, everybody lives in this community. Let's make it the best we can. And whether you're a biologist teaching biology at the university, or a coach coaching in one of the sports, or you're an accountant, taking everybody's, taxes, you all have to work together in order to make it work. And Central obviously is so big. I mean, you're talking, just the students, it went from, I think we're right around 4,000 students when I was here to now, what is it, like 11,000 or something?
I think it's around
Students?
now.
No, but it got up to about 11, I think.
Yeah, it was like 11, 12. Yeah.
So at least doubled. It's doubled the size. And when you start doing that, you think, okay, all the people that not only teach, but all the, the spouses, the kids, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. There's a lot of people that are interwoven into both the town and the, university. So I think I've always thought they've done a great job of trying to marry the two together.
I agree. Yeah. I feel like,
and it's also nice to be in a small town.
Yeah.
To where you have that small town feeling, but then you have the university. So the amount of, and I've always enjoyed this. This is probably now that I'm thinking about it, probably one of the bigger thoughts is, even though we're in a small town, we get to enjoy a lot of, I don't know the word value. But like if a speaker comes to Central and you're living in a small town somewhere else, a ways away, you probably don't get the opportunity to go see, like I saw Cesar Chavez here, who's he was incredible. And we, got a chance to go to that. And you see different performers that come here, and, every once in a while they'll bring in, some big performer for whether it be a homecoming or a different event, and you get a chance to go see them or go watch Robot Wars, in the pavilion or stuff like that. And where else would you get to see that stuff and still be able to be in a town this size?
It's definitely not often.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right. Well, my last one is just a question of if you have any stories that you're willing to share with Wildcat Nation from your time here.
Stories.
Or fun experiences that you are willing to share that I know typically in the past, especially from a lot of the football players, have gotten, most of them just aren't appropriate enough.
Right. No. stories or experiences I've had here while I've been
Yeah,
here? Is that what
just
you?
that you're willing to share with Wildcat Nation on your time at CWU in Ellensburg.
Well, I will say the greatest is the birth of my kids. Look for those experiences, and I know they're pretty generic. You know, everybody says that who has kids probably, but my next door neighbor was Jim Pappas. And Jim Pappas was a longtime vice president of Central and was even the president of Central for a period of time. And awesome. He still is, great man, all that stuff. But he did a lot to bring in a lot of people that may or may not have even gone to college. And he was a big part of the oh gosh, I'm thinking of the department. Admissions. He ran admissions at Central for a lot of years and would take chances on people. And people that may not have had the best chance of coming into Central and making a difference and changing their lives. But I think he was huge on that. And he so anyways, being able to live next to Jim Pappas and listen to him talk about just past Central days, that was, I know it doesn't sound like the crazy experience you would think, but it's something that I'll always cherish. I also think the experiences of going out after a win, especially when you're a player, was always fun. And it was a different time because all the video games and stuff weren't quite around when I was young, thank God. And neither were telephones with cameras in them. I'm really happy that that was not around. But to be able to go out town, have a good time. We had good response by our university as far as like a lot of the students would come out to ball games. All our games were at 1:00, so they'd come out. Let's see, can I tell you this? I'll tell you this one. I was never a part of it, but I heard a lot of stories about it. So it's not even there anymore. It was a couple different things, but there was a little shop, it was a pizza place called Pizza Mia. And it was at the corner right there of, well, it would be University Way. And I think, what's the name of that street that you go down, the castle's on?
Is it like Walnut or
Chestnut? Walnut, Chestnut, one of those, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was on the corner there. And anyway, so it was a pizza place, and they called it hardcore, right?
Okay.
So it's 6:00. It's for our home games, because we played 1:00 games. For the home games at 6 a.m. in the morning, you could go down and get a beer for 25 cents at 6 a.m. in the morning. So these guys would go down there and just get tuned up and then come up to the football game. And so you had some pretty crazy, stands there for a while. And, but just little stuff like that. We did that. Another one I really enjoyed, I wish they would kind of bring it back. I don't know if they ever will, but we played the Rodeo Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
This was not, I didn't play, but I coached in a bunch of them. And what the guys would do is the teams would come together. We'd play the game at Central. And for, I think it was like $10. And that ticket would get you into the football game and also get you down to the rodeo.
Oh,
so if you go to the rodeo and the football game for whatever, like I said, $10 ticket. And then we would play the football game. And the winning coach would come down the hill on a stage or a buckboard and carrying the trophy. And they had this trophy. And I remember we played North Dakota, who's now, they're a Division I program now, but they were pretty good. And they killed us. And the coach comes down and he's got this big trophy, we're all sitting in the stands watching it. Just, we're grumbling to ourselves, like, what the heck, But it was a great deal. I mean, they would feed both teams like a after game lunch. So their team and our team would come together. We didn't, not in the same rooms, but they'd have one team and they'd feed them on one spot, and our team they would, feed the another, and then they would get to go to the rodeo.
Oh,
and it was a great deal. And the rodeo clown guy, I still can't remember. He's like one of the famous guys, but he played football at Western Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And we played Western Montana a couple times in the rodeo bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And, but he would, he's sitting there doing his clown stuff, fighting bulls and doing all that stuff. And as he's doing that, talking about the game. And so he went to the game. He would know the kids. And so he was coming up with his own stories about, and he would call out guys like, yeah, I saw number 13 drop the ball and, and stuff like that. But it was, he was funnier than heck, and he made it fun. But so that was an experience. Those were a continued experience that I enjoyed. And then obviously the wins. My sisters, I have 3 sisters, and they would come over to games usually once or twice a year. And we would get home and they wouldn't even know who won the game. The only reason they came was to go watch the band, because Central's had such a great band for so many years. It still does, but they would come and watch that, throughout the years, and just, wow, they were impressed. So that's the stuff what other people enjoyed, and then like the I know this sounds funny, but the alumni tent, as a coach, you're never around it. I mean, it's there. But this year, being retired, I went there, and it was kind of a pretty cool experience, and seeing a ton of people and all that stuff. But you don't notice them when you're playing or coach, and it's just something that's there.
That makes sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of. It's hard to condense everything into a small snippet of information as far as memories. I still live right now. I live right next to Bruce Walker. We coached together, friends forever. He went to a couple of different places. He went to Toledo from Central, and then was there for about 10 or 15 years, and then moved, or about 10 years, I guess, and then moved to coach at Missouri, and did that for another 15 years or whatever. So, and then now he's still my buddy, still living right next to me, and we share a lot of those experiences when we get together and stuff. But Charles Chandler, he was my roommate for a lot of years, and we were really close. And he passed away, and not too long ago, and we were still really close all those years. And I think a lot of those guys, they come back because Central is one of those places where I'll nutshell this for you a little bit. The amount of people that started their careers at Central as coaches and got to experience coaching at this level, realizing how high a level it really is, even though it's not Division I, and they got to cut their teeth on doing a lot of great things and being with a lot of great people, and then going on and doing other things, coaching at different places. They quit coaching, but end up being really not quit coaching. I don't think they were quit. Change courses and go on and become great leaders of men in different, or men and women, I should say, leaders of people in different categories, whether it be in, going into the insurance industry or whatever it is, the things they've learned by being a player and then ultimately a coach at Central. And I'm talking about guys who coach there, players too, but I mean coaches that I can't think of many, if any, coaches that I coached with that were really into it. I mean, there were some couple guys would fly in, fly out, and all that stuff. Maybe 1 or 2 guys that didn't, that I would say probably didn't. Very few. By far, the majority of guys went on and had great careers and in whatever they chose. Yeah. So I'd say that's a pretty big memory. I mean, it's the people you meet. It's hard to categorize it or nutshell it, but the people obviously would be the number one, because without that, none of this is happening. You don't have a job. I don't have a job. Nobody has that job. and to be able to, for me, being able to be with people that I enjoyed and in the athletic arena, I think that's something that not a lot of people get to do. I think we're all lucky to be in that, like in an athletic department.
Mm-hmm.
I think people that come in, I've noticed it over, I'm just kind of rambling here, but I've noticed people that have come in to work as any part of the athletic department,
mm-hmm.
right? So, there's been people that have run the front desk part of the athletic department who've come from other parts of the university, but they
mm-hmm.
saw this job opening, so they apply for it, they get it, and even though they're not coaching or anything like that, they all come back to say it was one of their most fun. Even though they'll go on to a bigger paying job or whatever, they always come back saying, "Man, I sure did have a lot of fun," And hopefully that's that continues and all that stuff. But to me, that was fun, and that's kind of how I felt. I couldn't imagine not liking your job
mm-hmm.
and just doing it, and it's not that the job, I don't know how to say this without offending anybody, but and some people, hey, you got to do what you got to do to feed the kids or yourself or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess being fortunate to have a job, let's put it that way, being fortunate enough to have a job that allows you to do all that stuff and to have fun and smiles on your faces and give people crud,
mm-hmm.
and knowing that it's a fun environment, I guess it's hard to find that stuff.
I definitely, especially like it feels like nowadays people just get a job, but they don't enjoy it, and they move on within like a year, and it's like, well, it's definitely it's super undervalued. It feels like to have a job that you genuinely enjoy and want to be at.
Yeah, I mean, I know guys who've left Central
mm-hmm.
and or left the job that they were at, but I mean, like Central especially,
mm-hmm.
and they think the grass is always greener.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be the D1 guy. Okay, go be that coach for that D1 coach and all that stuff, and then find out it's absolutely miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're coaching the same sport. The kids are still pretty much the same,
mm-hmm.
but they get into a situation where they're the environments, the pressure is different. Now, okay, great. Now you're getting paid, $800,000 a year, whatever, tons of money, and everybody's going to go, I can hang by my toenails for $800,000 a year, but at the end of the day, you're miserable. You're going to that work every day going, this is not fun,
mm-hmm.
especially after you taste fun. It's like and Central, because we don't make $1 million a year, and I think you take that, you take those experiences that your coworkers and all that stuff, and it's you make it what you want to make it, but it's usually pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, fun. That's I guess that's the nutshell, is having fun. I've had coaches Division I. I remember I talked to. Do you know who Mike Price is?
The name's
Mike Price. Mike Price used to be the head coach at Washington State University football, and then he went to Alabama, and then got into a little bit of a problem down there. They kind of did some. I don't know what all happened, but I know he got a lot of money from Sports Illustrated out of it because they reported on something that was wrong. And anyways. But he called me up, and I've kind of known him. He knew my brother a little bit, and he called me up about 5 years ago, and he was talking to me about this kid out in the middle of Idaho who he thought might be a good, Central player. And but one of the things he goes, Jesus, as he kind of talks in a high voice, and not high voice, don't put that in there. But I mean, he the way he talks, and he's like, man. He goes, Picha, you got to be the luckiest guy in the world. You stay in the same spot for your whole career. And I'm looking at him going, you're pretty lucky too. I mean, you made millions, right? Millions and millions. And, he's calling me from his lake place on Lake Coeur d'Alene.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, but he's the one telling me I'm lucky because he goes, you didn't have to, you didn't go anywhere as far as like your family got to be the same family, and all that stuff and be in the same place and the traditions and all that stuff. So I always felt good about that. I mean, that made me feel good. But sometimes, you need that from other people to kind of reassure you, maybe I did make the right decision.
Oh, absolutely. That reassurance helps so much.
Right. Right. So that's all I got.
Hey, perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time. That was awesome.